We're talking with Dr. John Ryan. He's from Certification Europe Limited. He's been based in Dublin, and he's speaking about energy performance, and it's about creating a new culture in your company and companies across the world and having sustainable play when it comes to energy management. Firstly, welcome to South Africa, and what's your perception, your thoughts been about the convention?
Yeah, well, thanks very much. It's great to be back in South Africa, and I think the conference so far has been interesting. I've learned a little bit more about the policy of the government here, and certainly from talking to some of the delegates and exhibitors about some of the challenges that they face from an energy management point of view particularly.
Yeah. Interesting you say that, because it doesn't feel like we feel like we're all actually learning in this whole area of energy, renewable energy, energy efficiency. I mean, it's something that's evolving all the time.
Yeah, and it's such a wide area. People talk about energy management, energy efficiency, dependency on fossil fuels, renewables, and it's quite a broad spectrum. I think what I was trying to get across to people today was, look, you can make this very simple for your own organisation, focus on what you can improve on, and like the bigger world will hopefully follow in suit.
Yeah, and it's about making it a way of life in the company, more than just an agenda we're putting in. Put it in your philosophy as a whole company.
Yeah, I think so. What we've learned in Europe is that organisations who embed energy management as part of their culture and philosophy are successful in managing their energy from a practical point of view. If it's taken that it's just we're putting in a special project, then it typically tends to end in terms of commitment at the end of that project, and then until maybe the next crisis hits, they then come back and look at it again. So I think the more traditional approach of putting in an engineering fix is fine. I think, but establishing the culture and understanding and planning what you're doing from an energy point of view is more long-term sustainable.
Yeah. I mean, do companies have a long-term sustainable, even a passing on to generations to come mentality when it comes to this?
I think certain companies do, but that's probably down to the philosophy of maybe some of the owners themselves. And in a lot of cases, businesses, have bosses further up the chain. A lot of businesses international now. So I think they're looking at two things. They're looking at the sustainability of the business, but also the cost base of their business, and they're trying to improve that at all times. Some certainly have a philosophical approach to saying, well, they should make an improvement.
Yeah, and government certainly putting pressure on companies as well now.
Yeah, and governments are doing this internationally as well. So I think we're going to see more and more regulation that will force companies to take steps in this area. So I suppose what I'm trying to encourage them to think about is doing it maybe on a voluntary basis and be prepared for when that regulation hits, and so that they're already compliant and they don't have to spend lots of money becoming compliant, perhaps.
And we were talking about some of the standards, of course, ISO 50001 being one of the new ones.
Exactly, it's a new standards. We've been using it in Europe since it arrived in June of this year. It had a predecessor in Europe, so that made it life easier for our customers there, and they've been using the previous version of it for improvements. And certainly we're seeing much more interest now from global companies saying, look, is this a way for us to manage our energy performance? What returns on investment can we get, and how can we make sure it works for us as a business? And to date, there's some great success stories.
Yeah, it certainly seems to be boosting the economy across the world.
Yeah, well, I think anything that sort of helps and brings a focus to the area of energy management is positive, provided it doesn't become bureaucratic and become something that is difficult for companies to attain. And I suppose to date it hasn't been. And it is obviously like anything, there is some work required, but I think the returns far outweigh the investment costs.
A lot of job opportunities. If someone's looking, particularly young people, it's a good place to get into.
Well, certainly energy management is the topic at the moment, and I think the industry is crying out for professionals, people who understand energy, people who have professional qualifications in it, and I think from school to university right up to the professional ranks, there's huge opportunities there, and I think it's going to be a very important job for people in the future.
Yeah.